The desperate call. The emergency session of the Galactic Confederation had been called for the third time in as many months, and Ambassador Zara Keth could feel the desperation radiating from every species representative in the Great Assembly Hall. Her own people, the Alterians, were known throughout the galaxy for their calm wisdom and diplomatic skills, but even she struggled to maintain composure as the holographic displays showed another star system going dark. The Kepler sector was gone, completely consumed. Where once 12 inhabited worlds had thrived, now only empty space remained, devoid of even stellar radiation. The void swarm had struck again, and they were getting stronger. Honored delegates, Chairman Vex of the Crystalline Hegemony spoke through harmonic vibrations that translated into the common tongue. We have lost 17 sectors in the past year. Our most advanced fleets cannot even slow their advance. The energy beings seem to grow more powerful with each system they consume. Zara stood gracefully, her silver hair catching the light from the chamber's bioluminescent ceiling. At nearly 7 feet tall, Alterians commanded attention through presence rather than force, and the assembly quieted to hear her words. Honored Chairman, fellow delegates, she began, her voice carrying the melodic quality that made her species such effective. Diplomats, we have exhausted every conventional approach. Our plasma weapons pass through them harmlessly. Our shields cannot block their energy drain attacks. Our fastest ships cannot escape once they begin their feeding process. A rumble of agreement swept through the chamber, accompanied by the various sounds each species made to express distress. The Zephyrians' wing beats increased in frequency, while the aquatic deepwater delegation released clouds of bioluminescent panic pheromones into their environmental suits. Perhaps, came a gravelly voice from the rear of the chamber. It is time to consider unconventional approaches. All attention turned to the speaker. General Corax of the Threnodi Empire rarely spoke in assembly, preferring to let his reputation as the galaxy's finest military strategist speak for him. His battle-scarred carapace bore the marks of conflicts spanning 3 centuries. What do you propose, General? Chairman Vex asked. Corax's compound eyes gleamed with something that might have been desperation or madness. There is one member, species we have not consulted. The newest addition to our confederation. A series of confused sounds filled the chamber. The melodic consortium released a series of questioning chimes, while several delegates accessed their databanks through neural interfaces. You cannot mean the Terrans, said Ambassador Reef of the Ocean Worlds, her translator struggling with the rapid clicking of her natural language. They have been members for barely 2 standard years. Their technology is centuries behind our most basic systems. Exactly, Corax replied. They think differently because they must. Their primitive approaches might reveal something we have missed. Zara found herself nodding slowly. She had been present at humanity's admission ceremony, and while their technology was indeed primitive, there had been something about their representative that intrigued her. Captain Sarah Chen had possessed a quality that was difficult to define but impossible to ignore. When presented with the galaxy's most complex diplomatic protocols, she had simply asked, "What do you really need from us?" "I volunteer to make contact," Zara announced, surprising herself. The Alterian Diplomatic Corps maintains the best translation protocols with pre-FTL species. The debate that followed lasted for hours, but eventually desperation won over pride. The galaxy's greatest civilizations were about to ask for help from a species that still used chemical rockets and projectile weapons. 3 days later, Zara's diplomatic vessel emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Earth hung before her like a blue and white jewel, beautiful but somehow different from other inhabited worlds she had visited. Through her ship's sensors, she could detect massive industrial complexes, orbital stations, and something else that puzzled her: deliberate explosions occurring at regular intervals across the planet's surface. Terran vessels, this is Ambassador Zara Keth of the Galactic Confederation requesting immediate communication with your leadership. We have an urgent matter of galactic security to discuss. The response came faster than she expected in heavily accented but perfectly understandable standard galactic. Ambassador Keth, this is Captain Sarah Chen of Terran Deep Space Command. We've been monitoring the hyperspace disturbances in the outer sectors. Are you here about the energy anomalies that have been consuming star systems? Zara's breath caught. The humans were already aware of the threat. Captain Chen, yes, the situation is worse than your sensors can detect. We need to speak immediately. Roger that, Ambassador. I'm transmitting coordinates for Luna Station. We'll have our full crisis team assembled by the time you dock. As Zara's ship approached the human orbital facility, she was struck by its crude but functional design. Where other species built elegant structures that flowed with artistic grace, humans had constructed something that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts, and somehow radiated competence despite its appearance. The docking bay was cramped by galactic standards, but the humans who greeted her moved with efficient precision. Captain Chen appeared exactly as Zara remembered. Average height for her species, dark hair pulled back in a practical style, and those peculiar forward-facing eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Ambassador Keth, welcome back to Sol System, Chen said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. I wish it were under better circumstances. The briefing room was filled with humans of various ages and appearances, all wearing simple uniforms that somehow conveyed more authority than the elaborate regalia favored by other species. Zara quickly summarized the situation, showing holographic recordings of the Void Swarm attacks and the devastation they left behind. Energy beings that consume entire star systems, mused Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenobiologist whose dark eyes were sharp with intelligence. And they grow stronger with each feeding, classic exponential threat pattern. Our energy weapons are useless, Zara continued. They seem to absorb any form of directed energy and convert it to fuel their expansion. Our most powerful dreadnoughts cannot even slow them down. General Marcus Rodriguez leaned forward, his weathered face thoughtful. Ambassador, have your people tried non-energy-based attacks? Non-energy-based? Zara was confused. General, we are discussing entities composed entirely of coherent energy fields. Physical matter cannot interact with them. Says who? Asked Captain Chen. The question was so simple that Zara found herself speechless. In all the debates, strategic sessions, and scientific analyses conducted by the galaxy's brightest minds, no one had questioned that fundamental assumption. The entities exist, Dr. Vasquez said slowly. Therefore, they must have some form of physical presence, even if it's not in normal spacetime. Energy without matter is just radiation, and radiation dissipates. These things are maintaining coherent forms across vast distances and time periods. Which means, added General Rodriguez, they have structure, and anything with structure can be disrupted. Zara felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. What are you proposing? Captain Chen stood and walked to a display screen showing the Sol system. Ambassador, you said the Confederation needs help. Earth's government has authorized me to offer our full support, including our military forces. Captain, with all respect, your most advanced warships cannot match even our lightest patrol craft. How could they possibly succeed where our battle fleets have failed? Chen smiled, and Zara was reminded that humans showing their teeth was actually a positive expression, though it looked somewhat predatory to other species. Ambassador, you're thinking like everyone else in the galaxy. You see this as a military problem requiring military solutions. We see it as an engineering problem requiring human solutions. What's the difference? General Rodriguez answered. When your people encounter an impossible problem, you retreat and regroup. When humans encounter an impossible problem, we change the rules until it becomes possible. Over the next several hours, Zara learned more about human psychology and methodology than she had absorbed in her previous diplomatic contacts. Humans, she discovered, were natural problem solvers who thrived on challenges that others considered insurmountable. Their entire evolutionary history had been shaped by surviving on what they called a death world, a planet where everything from the weather to the wildlife was actively trying to kill them. This explains your unusual approach to diplomacy, Zara realized. When you joined the Confederation, you didn't try to impress us with your achievements, you asked what we needed. Exactly, Chen confirmed. We're not the strongest or the smartest species in the galaxy, but we might be the most adaptable. Show us a problem, and we'll find a way to fix it, even if we have to build the tools from scratch. Dr. Vasquez pulled up detailed scans of the void swarm entities. These energy signatures show quantum entanglement patterns across multiple dimensional layers. They're not just existing in normal space, they're anchored in subspace as well. Which means, General Rodriguez continued, that attacking them in normal space is like trying to kill a tree by trimming its leaves. We need to get to the roots. Zara stared at the tactical displays with growing amazement. In less than 6 hours, these humans had developed theories that the galaxy's greatest scientific minds had missed entirely. More importantly, they were talking about solutions rather than merely analyzing the problem. "How soon can you mobilize your forces?" she asked. Captain Chen checked her chronometer. "The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet is already being prepped for deployment. We can launch within 48 hours. Impossible. It takes our fastest ships weeks to prepare for major operations." "Ambassador," Chen said with that predatory smile again, "you're about to learn why humans are very good at solving other people's problems. We don't wait for perfect conditions, we adapt to whatever conditions we find." As Zara prepared to return to Confederation space with news of Earth's commitment, she found herself wondering if the galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. The humans seemed utterly confident in their ability to succeed where everyone else had failed, and their confidence was oddly infectious. "Captain Chen," she said as they walked toward the docking bay, "may I ask what gives you such certainty? You haven't even seen these entities in action." Chen paused at the airlock, her expression thoughtful. "Ambassador, humans have been dealing with impossible problems for our entire existence. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, natural disasters, and threats that should have wiped us out a dozen times over. The void swarm might be new to the galaxy, but the concept of an unstoppable threat trying to consume everything we care about? That's just Tuesday for us." As Zara's ship departed Luna Station, she transmitted her report to the Confederation Council. The response was immediate and predictable, skepticism mixed with desperate hope. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations were about to bet their survival on a species that still used gunpowder and internal combustion engines. But as she watched Earth's industrial centers continue their mysterious regular explosions, Zara began to suspect that the galaxy might be in for a few surprises. Those explosions, she had learned, were something called mining operations. Humans were literally blowing up their own planet to extract resources, and they considered this perfectly normal. Any species capable of that level of controlled destruction might just be crazy enough to find a way to kill energy beings that everyone else considered invincible. The impossible plan. The Confederation staging area at Nexus Station had never hosted such an unusual gathering. Ships from a dozen species floated in precise formations, their elegant designs reflecting millennia of advancement in aesthetic and functional engineering. Curved hull plating that channeled energy flows, bioorganic materials that self-repaired, and propulsion systems that barely disturbed local spacetime. Then the human fleet arrived. Ambassador Zara Keth watched from the station's observation deck as 12 human vessels emerged from their primitive hyperspace jump system with all the subtlety of a meteor shower. The ships were angular, aggressive-looking things that seemed to have been assembled from spare parts by someone with more enthusiasm than artistic sensibility. "By the 7 moons," whispered Admiral Tenzin of the crystalline hegemony, his harmonic resonance patterns conveying barely contained horror. "Are those weapons platforms or industrial accidents?" The largest human vessel approached the docking array with mechanical precision. Unlike other species ships that flowed gracefully through space using gravitic manipulation, the human craft moved by expelling superheated plasma from massive engines that lit up the local sensor arrays like warning beacons. Captain Sarah Chen's voice crackled over the communication system with characteristic directness. "Nexus Station Control. This is the TDF Resilience requesting docking clearance for myself and 11 escort vessels. We're here to solve your energy being problem." The docking took longer than expected because the human ships were built to different dimensional standards than the rest of the galaxy. Where other species designed elegant, streamlined vessels, Humans had created what looked like flying cities bristling with sensor arrays, communication dishes, and weapon systems that no one recognized. Zara met Chen at the airlock, accompanied by General Korax and the assembled command staff from 8 different species. The human captain emerged wearing a simple duty uniform that looked positively primitive compared to the elaborate ceremonial gear worn by other fleet commanders. "Captain Chen," Zara said formally, "allow me to present the combined fleet command, staff." Chen's response was to pull out a small electronic device and begin scanning each alien present. "Pleased to meet you all. Just getting baseline readings for our tactical computers. We need to know who we're working with if this is going to succeed." Admiral Tenzin's crystalline structure flickered with indignation. "Captain, such casual behavior is hardly appropriate for Admiral," Chen interrupted politely but firmly. "With respect, we're not here for ceremony. Every minute we spend on protocol is another minute the void swarm gets stronger. Dr. Vasquez, what's our current tactical assessment?" A human woman in her 40s stepped forward, consulting a handheld device that looked like a child's toy compared to the advanced neural interfaces used by other species. "Based on the sensor data Ambassador Keth provided, we're dealing with entities that exist simultaneously in normal space and at least 3 subspace layers. Their energy signature suggests they're using quantum entanglement to maintain cohesion across dimensional barriers." General Korax's compound eyes focused intently on the human scientist. "Dr. Vasquez, your assessment matches our own conclusions, but how do you propose to attack entities that exist partially outside normal physics?" "Same way we solve any engineering problem," replied Dr. Vasquez. "We change the environment until the problem becomes manageable." The briefing room fell silent. Fleet Admiral Seren of the Melodic Consortium released a series of confused chimes that her translator rendered as questions about the human sanity. "Explain," commanded Admiral Tenzin. Captain Chen activated a holographic display that showed the Void Swarm's attack patterns. "Every species that's fought these things has made the same mistake. You've tried to destroy them using conventional weapons in normal space. It's like trying to kill a tree by attacking the branches while ignoring the root system. The entities anchor themselves in subspace," continued Dr. Vasquez. "That's how they maintain coherent energy patterns across vast distances. But subspace isn't empty. It's filled with quantum fluctuations, dimensional membranes, and exotic matter that normally doesn't interact with regular physics." General Rodriguez stepped forward, his scarred face grim with determination. "What Dr. Vasquez is saying is that we can't fight energy with energy, but we can disrupt the medium that allows the energy to maintain stability." Zara felt her diplomatic training struggling to process what she was hearing. "Captain, are you suggesting you can manipulate subspace itself?" "Not manipulate," Chen corrected. "Destabilize. Create localized quantum storms that force the entities back into normal space where they become vulnerable to conventional attack." The silence that followed was broken by Admiral Seren's translator. "The Melodic Consortium wishes to know if the humans have lost their collective minds." Chen's smile was sharp and confident. "Admiral, madness is just another word for thinking outside established parameters. Dr. Vasquez, show them the test results." The holographic display changed to show what appeared to be a small-scale experiment. Humans had somehow created a miniature version of the Void Swarm's energy signature, and then systematically disrupted its subspace anchors using devices that looked like they had been assembled in someone's garage. "How is this possible?" Admiral Tenzin's harmonics conveyed genuine amazement. "No species has ever successfully manipulated subspace on this scale." "That's because no other species has been desperate enough to try," General Rodriguez replied. "Humans excel at making impossible things work through sheer stubborn determination and creative engineering." Dr. Vasquez pulled up technical specifications that made the assembled alien commanders recoil in shock. "We call them quantum disruption torpedoes. They're basically controlled singularity generators wrapped around exotic matter cores and delivered via kinetic impact systems." "You built weapons out of artificial black holes?" Zara asked, her diplomatic composure finally cracking. "Mini black holes," Chen corrected cheerfully. "Completely safe as long as you don't accidentally activate one inside your own ship. We tested the concept using our asteroid mining operations." General Korax leaned forward, his ancient warrior instincts recognizing something significant. "Captain, show us your fleet composition." The tactical display revealed the human force structure, and several alien commanders made sounds of dismay. Where other species brought sleek warships designed for energy combat, humans had assembled what looked like a mobile industrial complex. Mining ships, construction vessels, research platforms, and cargo haulers, all heavily modified with weapon systems and armor plating. "This isn't a military fleet," Admiral Tenzin observed. "This is an engineering corps with weapons." "Exactly," Shen confirmed. "We're not here to fight the Void Swarm in conventional terms. We're here to change the rules of engagement until conventional fighting becomes possible." Over the next several hours, the human plan unfolded in all its audacious complexity. Rather than engaging the entities directly, they proposed to systematically disrupt the subspace infrastructure that allowed the Void Swarm to maintain coherence. Teams of human engineers would establish quantum disruption fields at strategic points, forcing the entities into normal space where combined fleet firepower could destroy them. "The risks are enormous," warned Admiral Seren through her translator. "If your disruption fields collapse unexpectedly, the resulting subspace cascade could destroy entire sectors. That's why we have contingency plans," General Rodriguez replied. "And contingency plans for our contingency plans. Humans learned long ago that when you're attempting the impossible, you need to be prepared for everything to go wrong." Zara studied the tactical projections with growing amazement and terror. The human plan was simultaneously brilliant and insane, with so many variables that failure seemed inevitable. Yet somehow, their confidence was infectious. "Captain Chen," she said finally, "why are you so certain this will work?" Chen's expression became serious for the first time since her arrival. "Ambassador, I'm not certain it will work. I'm certain that we'll make it work, because the alternative is unacceptable. Humans have a saying, failure is not an option. When our backs are against the wall, we don't calculate odds. We create solutions." The final element of the human plan was the most shocking of all. They intended to use themselves as bait, allowing the Void Swarm to attack their positions while engineering teams worked to destabilize the subspace anchors. Human ships would absorb the entity's energy drain attacks, while their crews manually installed quantum disruption devices. "This is suicide," Admiral Tenzin declared, his crystalline structure flickering with distress patterns. "No biological entity can survive direct exposure to Void Swarm energy drain." Dr. Vasquez smiled grimly. "Admiral, you're thinking like someone from a civilized world. Humans evolved on Earth, where everything from the bacteria to the weather tries to kill you on a daily basis. We've developed certain resistances to environmental hazards that would be fatal to other species." She activated a medical display showing human physiological data. The assembled alien commanders stared in shock at readings that indicated humans could survive radiation levels, toxic atmospheres, and energy exposures that would kill most galactic species within minutes. "Your people are living weapons, General," Korak said with something approaching awe. "No," Chen corrected firmly. "We're living solutions. Point us at a problem, and we'll find a way to fix it, even if we have to rebuild the universe to make it work." The battle plan was finalized within 18 hours, a speed that left the alien commanders reeling. Where other species required weeks of careful preparation and extensive computer modeling, humans seemed to thrive on improvisation and adaptive planning. As the combined fleet prepared to depart for the war zone, Zara found herself standing beside Captain Chen on the observation deck, watching human crews make final modifications to their ships with welding torches and portable fabrication units. "Captain," she said quietly, "are your people always this intense?" Chen considered the question seriously. "Ambassador, humans have spent their entire evolutionary history solving problems that should have killed them. We've survived ice ages by learning to make fire. We've conquered diseases by teaching our immune systems to fight back. We've reached the stars by strapping ourselves to controlled explosions and hoping for the best." She gestured toward the mixed fleet of elegant alien vessels and crude human ships. The Void Swarm thinks it's an unstoppable force. It's about to learn what happens when an unstoppable force meets an unmovable human who's having a really bad day. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, Zara realized that the galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. For the first time, in their recorded history, the Void Swarm was going to encounter a species that considered impossible problems to be routine engineering challenges. The entities had consumed 17 sectors by adapting to every conventional response. They were about to discover that humans didn't believe in conventional responses. Victory through madness, the Kepler sector looked like a wound in space itself. Where once 12 inhabited worlds had orbited their parent star, now only twisted fragments of matter drifted in the cosmic void. The star itself flickered erratically, its nuclear fire being systematically drained by the massive energy entities that move through the system like cosmic predators. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TDF Resilience, watching her. Tactical displays tracked 17 separate Void Swarm entities as they fed on the last remnants of stellar energy. Each entity was the size of a small moon, composed of coherent energy patterns that defied every known law of physics. "All ships report ready for Operation Longshot," announced Commander Torres from the communication station. Around them, the our combined fleet held position at the edge of the system. 12 human vessels surrounded by elegant alien warships that looked fragile as crystal sculptures next to the angular human designs. "Dr. Vasquez, final status on the quantum disruption torpedoes?" Chen asked. The xenobiologist checked her readings one last time. "All systems green, Captain. The exotic matter cores are stable, the artificial singularities are contained, and the delivery systems are armed. I still can't believe we're actually doing this." General Rodriguez moved beside her, his weathered face grim with determination. "Doctor, 30 years ago, I watched Buenos Aires get flattened by an asteroid that everyone said was impossible to stop. Humans have a talent for making the impossible seem routine." Through the bridge windows, Chen could see the mixed crews of alien observers aboard human ships, their various physiologies protected by environmental suits designed for species that had never evolved on Deathworlds. Ambassador Zara Keth was stationed aboard the flagship, her silver hair visible through the transparent aluminum of her life support helmet. "Ambassador," Chen said over the comm system, "last chance to transfer to one of your own vessels. Things are about to get extremely dangerous." Zara's melodic voice carried determination that surprised even her. "Captain, if humanity is willing to risk everything for species they barely know, the least I can do is share that risk." The Void Swarm entities had detected their approach and were moving to intercept, their energy signatures growing brighter, as they prepared to feed on a new source of power. Traditional fleet doctrine would have called for immediate retreat at this point, but humans had never been particularly traditional. "All human vessels, initiate Phase 1, Chen commanded. "Remember, people, we're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to cheat so badly that winning becomes inevitable." The human ships began their approach, but instead of the careful tactical formations favored by other species, they scattered across the system in what looked like random patterns. Each vessel was heading toward specific coordinates that Dr. Vasquez had calculated using principles that the galaxy's greatest physicists claimed were impossible. "Resilience, this is Admiral Tenzin," came the harmonic tones of the crystalline hegemony fleet commander. "Your vessels appear to be moving directly into optimal attack positions for the entities. Are you certain about your strategy?" "Admiral," Chen replied calmly, "we're about to demonstrate the difference between optimal and effective. Dr. Vasquez, initiate subspace scanning." The human ships deployed sensor arrays that looked like metallic flowers blooming in space, each one designed to penetrate the quantum barriers between normal space and the subspace layers where the Void Swarm anchored their coherent energy patterns. "Contact," announced Lieutenant Parker from the sensor station. "I'm reading massive subspace infrastructure throughout the system. The entities aren't just feeding on stellar energy. They're using the star's gravity well to maintain stability across 7 different dimensional layers. Which means," Dr. Vasquez added with grim satisfaction, "they're more vulnerable than they appear. All that complexity creates multiple failure points." The first Void Swarm entity reached the human perimeter, and began its energy drain attack. The alien observers watched in horror as coherent energy beams struck the TDF determination, expecting to see the ship's power systems fail instantly, as had happened to every previous target. Instead, the human vessel absorbed the energy drain and kept fighting. How is this possible? Admiral Seren's translator rendered her melodic confusion into standard Galactic. No known technology can resist void swarm energy absorption. Commander Martinez of the Determination answered over the fleet channel, his voice steady despite the massive energy discharges surrounding his ship. Admiral, human ships don't rely on single power sources. We've got fusion reactors, chemical batteries, kinetic generators, solar collectors, and emergency systems that run on everything from radioactive decay to hand cranks. The entities can drain our main power, but we've got 17 backup systems they don't even know about. While the void swarm entities focused on the seemingly helpless human vessels, engineering teams were working frantically to deploy the quantum disruption devices. These were not elegant pieces of technology. They looked like improvised bombs built from spare parts and held together with determination. Disruption Field Alpha is in position, reported Chief Engineer Kim from the TDF Audacity. Initiating exotic matter release in 3, 2, 1 mark. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Space itself seemed to twist around the disruption device as it created a localized zone where the normal laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. The nearest void swarm entity suddenly found its subspace anchors destabilizing, forcing it to exist entirely in normal space. All allied vessels target the destabilized entity with conventional weapons, Chen commanded. It's vulnerable now. The combined fleet opened fire with every energy weapon available. Plasma cannons, particle beams, antimatter warheads, and exotic energy projectors that had been useless against the entities suddenly began taking effect. The void swarm creature writhed as coherent energy began dissipating into random radiation, but the victory came with a price. The quantum disruption field was creating cascade effects that rippled through subspace like cracks in reality itself. Emergency alarms began sounding throughout the human fleet as their sensors detected something that made trained engineers panic. "Captain," Dr. Vasquez shouted over the growing chaos, "the disruption field is causing subspace membrane collapse. If it spreads, it could tear holes in reality across the entire sector." Chen's response was immediate and typically human. "How long do we have?" "Maybe 10 minutes before the cascade becomes irreversible." "Then we have 10 minutes to finish this," Chen replied calmly. "All ships implement Emergency Protocol 7. We're going to solve 2 impossible problems simultaneously." Emergency Protocol 7 was something that existed only in human military doctrine. A battle plan based on the assumption that everything would go wrong at the worst possible moment, and that success would require actions that no sane species would attempt. The human ships began launching quantum disruption torpedoes at every remaining void swarm entity, while simultaneously deploying emergency subspace stabilization fields. They were essentially trying to tear holes in reality, while preventing reality from being torn apart, all while under attack from enemies that could drain the power from their ships. "This is insane." Admiral Tenzin's harmonics conveyed panic. "You cannot simultaneously destabilize and stabilize subspace. The quantum interference will destroy everything." "Admiral," General Rodriguez replied while manually aiming weapons that should have required computer assistance, "humans have been doing impossible things since we learned to make fire. We're not going to stop now." The battle became a race against physics itself. Human engineering teams worked frantically to install subspace stabilizers while their ships absorbed energy drain attacks that should have been fatal. Alien vessels provided covering fire while their crews watched humans perform feats of engineering that violated every principle of civilized technology. Dr. Vasquez coordinated the chaos from her mobile command center, a converted human transport. That looked like a flying workshop. "Stabilization Field 1 is operational. The membrane cascade is slowing but not stopping. We need at least 3 more fields to contain the reaction." "How long to deploy 3 more fields?" Chen asked while her ship shook under energy bombardment from 2 separate entities. 12 minutes minimum." "We don't have 12 minutes. "Then we make 12 minutes," General Rodriguez growled. He opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "All vessels, this is General Rodriguez. We came here to solve an impossible problem, and we're going to finish the job. Every human crew is authorized to take whatever risks are necessary to deploy those stabilization fields. Make your ancestors proud." What followed would later be studied by military historians as either the most brilliant tactical operation in galactic history or the most spectacular case of organized insanity ever recorded. Human ships deliberately placed themselves between void swarm entities and critical equipment installations, absorbing energy drain attacks while their crews manually installed quantum stabilization devices using tools that ranged from advanced fabrication units to simple welding torches. The TDF Persistence, commanded by Captain Maria Santos, actually rammed a void swarm entity while deploying a stabilization field, her ship's hull temperature rising to levels that should have killed everyone aboard. Instead, the human crew worked in environmental suits rated for volcanic conditions, treating the situation as if it were merely another day at the office. Stabilization. Field 4 is online, Dr. Vasquez announced as another human ship completed its impossible mission. "The Cascade is stabilizing, but we've got a new problem. The quantum interference is creating reality distortions. Space-time is becoming unstable in a 12 light-minute radius." Captain Chen looked at her tactical display, where the remaining void swarm entities were beginning to retreat as their subspace anchors continued to fail. The human plan was working, but success was creating new challenges that threatened to destroy everything they were trying to save. "Options, Doctor?" "We need to create a controlled quantum collapse," Dr. Vasquez replied, her fingers flying over controls that combined human engineering with alien technology in ways that no designer had ever intended. "Essentially, we deliberately break the laws of physics in a very specific way that forces everything back to normal. And if it doesn't work, then we create a permanent hole in reality that makes the void swarm look like a minor inconvenience." Chen considered this for exactly 3 seconds. "Do it." The final phase of Operation Longshot required every ship in the combined fleet to coordinate their actions with precision that should have been impossible given the communication delays and quantum interference effects. Human vessels served as mobile platforms for alien technology, while alien ships provided power for human engineering solutions that existed nowhere in any technical manual. Ambassador Zara Keth watched from the bridge of the Resilience as humans and aliens worked together with desperate efficiency. The Alterian diplomat had spent her career facilitating cooperation between different species, but she had never seen anything like this. Beings from a dozen different worlds united by the simple human conviction that impossible problems were just puzzles waiting to be solved. "All vessels prepare for synchronized quantum pulse," Chen announced. "We get one chance at this. If we miss our timing window, we'll tear a hole in space-time that will take the galaxy's best scientists centuries to repair." The countdown began with mechanical precision. Human ships maneuvered into positions that placed them directly in the path of collapsing quantum fields. Alien vessels prepared to channel their entire power output through improvised human devices that looked like they had been assembled by particularly creative children. 10 seconds to pulse initiation, Dr. Vasquez announced. "All subspace stabilizers are synchronized. Quantum disruption fields are aligned. Reality distortion is contained within acceptable parameters. 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1, execute." The combined fleet released a pulse of directed quantum energy that was simultaneously the most advanced and most primitive weapon ever deployed in galactic warfare. It combined principles that the galaxy's greatest physicists insisted were incompatible, delivered through systems that violated every known safety protocol, and coordinated by a species that considered such impossibilities to be routine engineering challenges. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The remaining void swarm entities found their energy patterns completely destabilized as the quantum pulse severed their connections to subspace. For the first time since they had emerged from the galactic rim, the creatures were forced to exist entirely in normal space, where the laws of physics applied to them just as they did to everything else. "All allied vessels concentrate fire," Chen commanded. "They're vulnerable now." The final battle lasted only minutes, Energy weapons that had been useless against the entities now tore through their destabilized forms like fire through paper. One by one, the void swarm creatures dissipated into random radiation, their coherent energy patterns finally succumbing to the entropy they had avoided for so long. As the last entity collapsed into harmless cosmic background radiation, the combined fleet found itself floating in a star system that was slowly returning to normal. The quantum disruption fields were stabilizing, the reality distortions were healing, and the star itself was beginning to burn with steady nuclear fire again. "All vessels report status," Chen requested. The responses came in from across the fleet. Human ships reported moderate damage and crews who were tired but functional. Alien vessels reported that their crews were in various states of shock, from witnessing humans treat impossible situations as routine problems. "This is Admiral Tenzin," came the harmonic tones of the crystalline hegemony commander. "Captain Chen, I must ask, do your people always approach military operations with such creative disregard for established protocol?" Chen's laugh was audible across the fleet channel. "Admiral, this was actually one of our more conventional operations. We didn't have to rebuild the fundamental laws of physics or anything." Dr. Vasquez was already analyzing the battle data, her scientific mind racing to understand what they had accomplished. "Captain, the quantum pulse technique could be adapted for other applications. We might have accidentally solved the theoretical problems of faster-than-light communication and controlled dimensional manipulation." "Doctor," Chen replied with characteristic human pragmatism, "let's save the galaxy first. We can revolutionize physics afterward." The journey back to Confederation space took 3 days, during which the alien crews had time to fully process what they had witnessed. Ambassador Zara Keth spent hours interviewing human personnel, trying to understand how a species could remain so calm while performing feats that violated everything she thought she knew about the possible. "Captain Chen," she said during one of their conversations, "your people have just demonstrated capabilities that exceed anything in Confederation records. Your weapons technology, your engineering solutions, your tactical innovations, all of it seems to emerge from nowhere when circumstances require it." Chen considered her words carefully. "Ambassador, humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When we absolutely need something to work, we find a way to make it work, even if we have to invent new science to do it." "But how?" "Your educational systems, your research, infrastructure, your technological base, none of it suggests the capabilities we just witnessed." "That's because you're looking at the wrong things," General Rodriguez interjected. "Human capabilities don't come from our technology or our institutions. They come from our refusal to accept that anything is truly impossible." The return to Nexus Station was marked by a reception that would be remembered in diplomatic history for its complete lack of protocol and abundance of genuine celebration. Representatives from every Confederation species gathered to hear first-hand accounts of the battle, and the stories they heard would reshape their understanding of what was possible. Admiral Serene of the Melodic Consortium performed a harmony of gratitude that lasted for 3 hours and could be heard throughout the station. General Korax formally requested permission to study human military doctrine, claiming that his species had much to learn from beings who treated impossible victories as acceptable outcomes. But it was Chairman Vex of the Crystalline Hegemony who asked the question that everyone was thinking. "Captain Chen, the Confederation would be honored to offer humanity a leadership position in our defense forces. Your people have demonstrated capabilities that could protect the galaxy from threats we haven't even imagined yet." Chen's response was characteristically direct. "Chairman, we appreciate the offer, but humans prefer to be the people you call. When things go wrong, we're problem solvers, not administrators. Give us something that needs fixing and we'll figure out how to fix it. Even if the problem seems impossible? Especially if the problem seems impossible." The formal debriefing sessions lasted for weeks, during which Confederation scientists tried to understand the theoretical principles behind human quantum manipulation techniques. The answers they received only deepened their confusion and admiration. "The exotic matter cores shouldn't be stable," protested Dr. Kellyan of the Advanced Physics Institute. Your containment systems violate 17 fundamental laws of quantum mechanics. Dr. Vasquez smiled patiently. Doctor, human engineering operates on the principle that if something needs to work, you make it work. We worry about explaining why it works after we've solved the immediate problem. But the theoretical implications can be studied later, General Rodriguez interrupted. Right now, the important thing is that the void swarm is gone and the galaxy is safe. Ambassador Zara Keth filed her final report to the Confederation Council with recommendations that would fundamentally change the galaxy's approach to crisis management. The report concluded with a statement that would be quoted in diplomatic academies for generations. Humanity represents a new paradigm in galactic civilization. They are a species that has learned to thrive in impossible conditions by refusing to acknowledge that anything is truly impossible. Their greatest strength is not their technology or their weapons, but their absolute conviction that every problem has a solution, even if that solution requires breaking the laws of physics. The celebrations continued for days, but Captain Chen found herself standing alone on an observation deck, looking out at the stars and thinking about the future. Ambassador Zara approached quietly, her diplomatic training recognizing the need for contemplation after intense action. Regrets, Captain? Questions, Chen replied. The void swarm was just one threat in a galaxy full of dangers. What happens when the next impossible problem emerges? Zara smiled, finally understanding what made humans so uniquely valuable to the Confederation. Captain, if today taught me anything, it's that the galaxy now has a species that specializes in solving impossible problems. When the next crisis emerges, we'll call Earth. And we'll figure out how to fix it, Chen confirmed with quiet confidence. That's what humans do. As the combined fleet dispersed to return to their home systems, word of the human victory spread throughout Confederation space. The story grew with each telling, but the core truth remained constant. A species from a primitive death world had succeeded, where the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had failed, not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through simple human stubbornness and the refusal to accept defeat. The void swarm was gone, but its defeat had introduced something new to the galaxy. The knowledge that impossible problems were just puzzles waiting for the right kind of mind to solve them. And somewhere in a small yellow star system on the galactic rim, 8 billion humans continued their daily lives unaware that they had just redefined what was possible. The age of human problem-solving had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the weeks that followed, requests for human assistance began arriving at Earth from across Confederation space. Problems that had plagued civilizations for centuries, challenges that had been deemed theoretically unsolvable, disasters that required solutions that didn't exist. All were presented to a species that had learned to turn impossibility into routine. And each time, the answer from Earth was the same: we'll figure something out. Because that, more than any advanced technology or ancient wisdom, was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the absolute conviction that every problem had a solution, no matter how impossible it might seem.